Spence, I wanted to talk to you about this IVB promotional entity that are looking to set up a boxing fight where the world record for attendance is made. They've talked about doing it in San Francisco. What do you think to that? I mean, do you think that's a? I mean, anyone can give away free tickets.
It's a new organisation. I Visit Boxing now. The mastermind behind this, I think that they were quite instrumental in what happened in Times Square. They worked with Turki Al-Sheikh already, so they understand the business. And basically they're trying to break that record, Guinness record of 150,000. 135,000.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get 150,000 in San Francisco. The big question is, OK, you understand the model, you know how to do it. There's going to be a lot of giveaways with tickets. It's going to be a festival type thing. They're going to have bands there, etc. And they're going to put on these huge boxing names. Who are those boxing names with different broadcasters, fighters, and different promoters that fighters are tied up with? And they said, by the way, they are willing to work with all the promoters. But you go, is that where they're looking to land Alexander Usyk versus Deontay Wilder with a big undercard? There you go. But is that enough to get 140,000 people? Well, I mean, I love the vision, and I think that what Ed was talking about, you know, it sounds brilliant.
Let's listen to the IVB CEO Ed Pereira talking on Fight Nights over the weekend.
One of the key things that we're looking to do is to make money. Everybody wants to make money, so we're going to be using pay-per-view, their pay-per-view platform. So really excited about that, because obviously when you're looking at pay-per-view, normally in the market, it's what we call behind a double paywall. So you've got to pay the subscription, then the pay-per-view on top. YouTube is ubiquitous. It's in everybody's pocket. It's preloaded on everybody's phones. That pay-per-view platform, that's the secret. So we're really excited about that. And I've gone out and said I wanted to bring boxing back to the people, so we've got to keep it cheap. I think something that Gareth said, look, there is, earlier in the show, there is a space for pay-per-view. We need pay-per-view for those big fights. But pay-per-view has got too expensive. That's the biggest problem. So we're looking at keeping them really keen. £10. In the UK, around £10, $15. That smashes below what happens mainly in the US. And the reason why we can do that is the reach of YouTube. I think, you know, we've been involved in helping advertise some of the biggest fights over the last few years. And I think if those fights had a broader reach, more people would have bought those pay-per-views and made them cheaper. So I think we're looking at selling more pay-per-views if you lower the price and you make it more accessible.
I mean, what's your thoughts on that, by the way? Like,
well, going to YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, do you think that YouTube can sort of enter this space?
Of course they can.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the BBC are doing a deal with YouTube on various things. The digital marketplace is the next generation of broadcasting. Linear broadcasting is losing its lustre. Of course they're going to do a deal with YouTube. It's got the biggest audience numbers.
But boxing's going through massive change at the moment. You know, with this IBA, we know IBA have emerged, and we've got this IVB as well, and also with Zuffa Boxing as well. Do you think that it's going to benefit the sport as a whole? Do you think that the sport can enhance from it?
I think we can all answer that question, can't we? If they do it well, and it adds value, then how can it detract? If people do it poorly, if they're low rent, if there's not a lot of thinking, if the athletes aren't looked after, if the events aren't good enough. From my point of view, you guys can answer that question equally as compellingly as I can. The answer is, if these guys do this well, they add value. The more eyes that are on the prize, whether you like the Jake Paul phenomenon or you agree with it and think that it shouldn't be part of the boxing landscape. I didn't think it was. I thought it was a media event that Jake Paul had the fight with Anthony Joshua. I think it announced Anthony Joshua as a media personality prior to the tragedy that he had over the Christmas period. And it fulfilled a value added, which is the more people that watch boxing, the more boxing is mainstream, and digital is now mainstream. People are not. You can't run around calling people YouTubers anymore as a derogatory term. Oh, he's just a YouTuber.
Do you really think that we could, in 2026, let's say, see like an Usyk versus Wilder fall on the YouTube space? You've got 2.7 billion users in that space, and if they do, Simon, this is to add to this question. If they do, where does that leave the likes of DAZN? You know, Sky seem to be falling off the wagon a little bit in recent times anyway, but it seems that all eyes now, there's big eyes on YouTube. I think we're living in that generation. DAZN is a pay-per-view subscription before you pay-per-view.
Sure.
So if this is a success,
it brings another challenge.
And Turkey he's worked with Turkey as well. Turkey has that interest, and you get Zoffa Boxing there as well. All of a sudden, where does it leave these other broadcasters?
Well, it will mean that ultimately, the quality of the fight, won't it? The quality of the people that appear on it, the value of the fight will determine the outcomes. Netflix have entered this arena, so there's a whole raft of different platforms, and what it will do is just create a whole raft of visibility for people that want to watch it through different prisms. So whether it's DAZN, whether it's YouTube, whether you can get the fighters. The reason why Usyk might fight on YouTube is because, for whatever reason, and I think it's outrageous that I even raised this point a couple of weeks ago, and I know I got smacked for it. Whilst he is the best fighter in his division, and he's the best fighter of the heavyweight division for the last generation, Usyk doesn't flick the switch economically for certain people. Now, whether that's right or wrong, it's not justified, because by merit he should do, but he doesn't. But if you stick him on YouTube, he might get paid what he thought he was entitled to get paid by the Saudis or whoever else.
I saw an article yesterday on MVP's Instagram, and it had the Jake Paul effect, and it showed you Mike Tyson and his Instagram followers before the fight, and Anthony Joshua and they both gained like 3 to 5 million Instagram followers each. Now, I hate the term and I hate the whole followers thing and people buying them and things like that. But that's what this generation of judging.
But if you look at DAZN, paid out whatever they paid out for Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Say it's $100 million. We've done this calculation before. They put on 2 million subscribers. The 2 million subscribers are worth $997 to DAZN. That's $2 billion. They paid out $100 million for a fight and got $2 billion in future revenues. That's the revenue stream. That's what YouTube will do with its ad roll, and then the fighters will ultimately benefit, because more fights, more platforms, better fighters, more money, and it'll be a competitive landscape, and the quality will rise to the surface. If you go to YouTube and you don't get the quality, then you'll go to DAZN and pay for the premium of being on DAZN, or whatever Sky are doing at the time, or whatever TNT are doing, if they're doing anything, or whatever Ben Shalom is doing with BBC, or whatever Ben Shalom is doing with the next version of things. And I'm going to bring that up next.
Isn't this driven by, ultimately, the characters
of
the show?
Yes.
And so,
absolutely.
I mean, I hear the talk, the potentiality, but the reason why Jake Paul will post such a thing is because it was Mike Tyson.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was.
So we need...
There's only so many of those around.
There's only so many around, so we can always have the platform. It's like the houses in the 80s that were there, and people, you need the fighters, the personalities. You need the personalities.
You bring a fighter to Misfits now, it's not exactly how they can fight, how many followers they got. And they'll put it in a calculator. They'll add it up in a calculator, how much it's going to make them to go, yeah, we'll have them.
Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, 108 million people watched that. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, 33 million. Watch that. Yeah. So you're talking about iconic
but it's still
figures.
It's still a lot of money.
No, absolutely.
And to answer the premise of the original question, and to close it off before we go on to something I was just sort of segued into and didn't follow into, which was Ben Shalom, YouTube coming into the boxing market and presenting another window is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the digital space is a joined-up thing. And it's much more accessible, and it's much broader, and it opens up a globalised audience, and it gives everyone an opportunity with very little barrier to entry. Whether it delivers the quality and production values, we'll see, but I'm all for it.
Yes.
Listen, we saw an announcement, or there's some comments associated with Ben Shalom talking about pay-per-views. And there's a report, and I'm going to read you what's been said, that Ben Shalom and Boxer will launch a pay-per-view platform. And this is what Ben told Boxing Scene. Our deal with the BBC is consistent, and we're going to be building big fights on there, but we have a pay-per-view model that we will be announcing next week. It's not going to sit on the BBC. Pay-per-view is always going to have to exist because the fighters need that dream. Like weddings, you dream of changing your life through boxing. I know it's unfortunate for fans, but otherwise maybe you're not getting the fighters willing to put their lives on the line, blah, blah, blah. What do you make of those comments, Paul? Obviously, the big thing about Ben going to the BBC was it was seen as an opportunity to seed it back into terrestrial TV, to mainstream TV, to see the big audiences on the BBC. And here he is talking about a pay-per-view model.
Yeah, it's a bit counterproductive and contradictory, isn't it? As such, I'm not having a go at Ben, but like pay-per-view, you're on BBC. If you can get shows good enough, fighters good enough, you'll get the BBC One slot. If you get the BBC One slot, like the old days, like we all grew up with 18 million people, 17 million people tuning in to watch a fight live, a big domestic fight, let's say, even for world titles. Brilliant. But if he thinks he needs the pay-per-view model, listen, he's more of a businessman than I am. I don't know, but
Do you know,
it's completely against what the BBC is, isn't it? It's free to air terrestrial
Paul,
TV.
I think, but I think
he's not doing it with the BBC.
Paul, I think what we found out here is that mainstream TV is like YouTube now. Like all our generation, our kids, no one watches TV anymore. Like, so you're looking at the numbers. I think Ben may have just realised that we're going with that. And you go, you're coming back with a pay-per-view model. Who's that pay-per-view star that you're talking about there? You go, because if you're talking about that being Chris Eubank Jr., which it's rumoured to hear that is possibly who it is, well, you're only as good as your last fight. You've only got that value in you. You can't come back with a pay-per-view fight with Chris Eubank Jr. going off the back of that last performance. Because anybody that knows, you go, his best days were clearly behind him. It weren't a bad performance. Yeah, all the weight factor in that as well, whatever, but that has taken its toll on the body.
I don't have an aversion for what my opinion's worth with a pay-per-view model, as long as what you're paying for is worth it.
Yeah.
As long as what you charge is economically valuable in terms of the returns to the fighter and to the promotional arm of the business, and the end user gets what they want, which is a good fight. And I think ultimately it has to be realisable, because the BBC will only pay a certain amount of money. And so there's only a certain amount of fights that Ben can put onto the BBC, and there's only a certain amount of fighters that will fight on the BBC for the returns that they're getting from as a result of it. So I think it's commercially sensible that pay-per-view exists. I don't think it flies in the face of one part of his business, seeding talent into the BBC, putting it back on terrestrial TV. But we can't have it one way. We can't turn around and say that terrestrial TV is dying on its arse, linear broadcasting is having a problem, and then object to the fact that the digital marketplace will exist and that pay-per-view will be part of it.
Be interesting to see where that pay-per-view all lands, if I'm honest.
Well, he's made a noise about it. We'll see.